Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial on object-oriented programming in Java. In short, we call that the OOP. Java is a object-oriented programming language, and this is totally based on the idea of the objects and classes. So in order to understand Java more, we need to have a better understanding on the objects and classes. So what is an object or a class? It's basically a concept, the way that it stores data and the way that it stores its methods. Okay. So remember, in the earlier tutorial we talked about the variables, and basically it's the same as attributes, fields, data, and state. It's just the naming. We can call it by anything. The same thing applies for the methods, and sometimes we call this to be the behavior. So the idea of the variables and the methods, these are the integral part of our understanding of the objects and classes. There is another very important aspect in object-oriented programming language, and all of the OOP languages, just like C++, they have these four features: polymorphism, abstraction, inheritance, and encapsulation. So we'll be talking about those four features later on in the tutorial. So now let's get into more about understanding the concept of classes and objects. Okay. So here I'm writing the class, and the definition of class is sometimes it's called the blueprint, it calls the template as well, and it consists of the fields, or we can call that the attributes, methods, okay, constructors, code blocks, and inner classes. Okay, so we will be talking about this later on. The constructors, code blocks, inner classes. Basically the constructors we'll be talking very shortly, but we are already familiar with this, the field and the methods. On the other hand, an object, these are the definitions: an instance of a class, and then we call that a type of a data structure. Okay, it has states and behavior, and sometimes we term this as an entity as well. Okay, but for the sake of the definition, just remember these two, that a class is a blueprint or a template, and an object is an instance of a class. Okay, so let's get into the definition of the class, why we are calling the blueprint. Let's take an example of making a house. When you're going to make a house, what you do? You talk to the architect, and architect comes up with a drawing, and that drawing we call the blueprint. Okay, that's the architectural design. So the architect then makes the blueprint and hands it over to the civil engineer or some other engineers, and then the engineers look into that blueprint, okay, and makes your house. Okay, so that means that this blueprint is what is an architectural design, and that is what we are calling the template. An object is what? An implementation of that design, right? Implementation of design based on that architectural design. Okay, so if we take some real-time example, how it looks. So let's take the example of car. Okay, so here I am writing the class, and then here I'm writing the objects. Okay, so when I'm going to make a car, what the car should have? The car should have a name, the car should have a body color, the car should have the wheels, and then there should be a method which is the brake. Okay, so a car can have many other features, but let's, for the sake of our definition and understanding, we are just going to focus on these three features. So when these three features are present, we are calling that a car, and then when this method is there, we are calling that to be a car. So these four things should be there in order to make a car. So let's say Toyota company, they wants to make a car. So when they are going to implement that car or make that car has to have a name, and which is Toyota. That is going to have a color which is, let's say, white. That car has wheels, which is like 4 wheels, and it has a brake system. Okay, and then we are calling this to be Toyota. The same thing applies for another car company, and they are making this car and named as Honda. The color is, let's say, gray. It has 4 wheels, and they have implemented a braking system. Okay, so this is another car which is Honda. Okay, and the concepts of these two are coming from what? The design thing. And what are the designs? That it has to have these three features and this method. So a Toyota is a car and Honda is a car, and these two we are calling as the instance. Okay, instance. So we are saying that Toyota is an instance of car, Honda is an instance of a car. So here comes the definition. An example again, like if we are going to revisit this. Object is an instance of class. So Toyota is an instance of car, Honda is an instance of car. So that means we have a car class here, and we have two instances, Toyota and Honda, and each of these are defined as objects. Okay, and this is class. So again, a class is the blueprint, a class gives the feature, a class gives the description, a class gives the definition, or a class gives a specification. On the other hand, the objects are the implementation. And how do we implement it? We are creating an instance. So the term instance, like how we are going to create an instance, we'll learn that later, but just for the sake of understanding, for the sake of the definition, make sure that you know that an object is an instance of a class. Okay. Let's take another example. Okay, let's take a patient registration system. Okay, so the patient registration system is used when the patient gets admitted in the front desk of a hospital. Okay, so that means when the patient tries to get admitted, okay, the clerk at the front desk, they ask the patient name, take the age, okay, take the address, then ask the problem description, okay, and then calculates medication. Okay, so that means whenever a person or whenever a patient is coming into the front desk, okay, the clerk is asking these things. That means these are going to be the features of a patient. That means to define a patient, we need to have what? We need to have these criterias: attributes, these 4 attributes, and 1 method. Okay, say for example the student will not be having these features. Okay, the students may have some different features like calculate GPA, okay, or the courses selected, but these are the definition to define a patient only. Okay, and then the first patient is patient A, and the second patient is patient B. Okay, and the patient will have the same features: name, age, address, problem description, and calculate method. Okay, the patient B will be having the same attributes and methods. Okay, so then what we can say that the patient A is an instance of the class patient. Okay, so if we are going to write it in a different way, so we can say that our patient is a class and patient B and patient A are going to be the objects, and these are instances. Okay, so I think by this time we should have a good understanding of the class and objects, and in order to do the Java we need to make clear our understanding on these 2 things, okay, the class and objects, because we need to see everything in terms of the objects and classes, and how we are creating the instances we'll be talking in the later tutorial. Okay, till then, okay, thank you.